Hi, my name is Chance Aubrey, and this is my 1992 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. I've had it now for about 8 years. We actually originally got it from the original owner. It was a one-owner car, which I, of course, ended up packing up. But right down in Evansville, Indiana, Workhorse in Indianapolis. And it was very clean, had only an exhaust on it at the time. And we've gone through quite a bit of different setups since then. I tried to buy it originally as just being a winter car. I had a BMW Z3M Roadster as my normal day-to-day car, and it of course is not the greatest in the winter, so I figured something all-wheel drive, and luckily my wife was supportive of it. And we ended up going and getting this from Jason, the original owner. Still talk to him to this day. And basically, we kept it stock for a while until I ended up getting a boost spike and torched the first motor out of it, and that led us down the path to kind of what it is today. At that time, we ended up putting an Evo 316G on it for a little while, and then to an FP Black. That's how I ended up getting to meet Devin from Boost and Performance. They tuned the car when it was on that setup. And it lived that way for a while, for a few years as a street car. I tried to keep it as stock looking as possible. It was on stock wheels. It was stock ride height. It was a dual tip muffler, just trying to keep it looking as original as possible while making a decent amount of horsepower for a street car. But of course, we ended up having more engine issues and other things that caused us to not be able to stay on that path for as long as one would hope, or at least my wallet would. So I ended up going from there to a 6466. That is actually how I ended up meeting my teammates. Was I bought a 6466 from Mike Wagner. That ended up making it so that I got hooked up with him and our other teammates of Donnie Swick and Alex and Ryan and Mike Lester and everybody. So there's a bunch in Goonie and a bunch of people that are now my support system. But we stayed with that setup for a while, and it never really made any passes or anything like that on that setup. We ended up having a couple of transmission issues. It was when I had first changed over to an auto. And then we bought a 6870. So it ran on that really just barely. We got it running at the Shootout, and we had some issues with wiring on my Haltech Nexus that was in it at the time. And I kind of just decided at that point that I was done with having the car not be everything I wanted it to be. And so we decided to go full out. And at that point, my wife bought in, I bought in, I spent a ton of time on it, and that's when we went to a forward-facing Precision 7385 Next Gen. I made the manifold myself, which was quite honestly a huge headache, but also just an insane accomplishment on my end, I think, just because I had never done it before. But we put a fully built aluminum rod filled block built by Bushers that is it's still on a stock crank, actually still on the original block from the car. It's also 10.5 to 1 compression, Wiseco HD vented. It's also the head has full Fourier valve train, a GSC S3 billet cams. It is ported and polished as well from Bushers, and it made 940 wheel horsepower at 55 pounds out at early performance. It's still got a ton left on the table. That's on fairly low ignition timing. These next gens are absolutely serious, so I've got tons of boost left on the table. And actually, our best pass to date was only on 49 pounds. So we've yet to really explore everything the car can do, but the rest of the drivetrain is up to the task as well, I think. It's a pretty much 7-second ready automatic. It's a 2G auto trans. JB drum, Kigley basket, precision converter. It's got a TMZ built 300 MT case. It is also a Jeff Bush input shaft. It's a carbon fiber DSS drive shaft. Frontlight fab rear diff cover. It's pretty much as serious as I can get it without going to a billet block, which may end up being the case, but for now I've got 2 motors and we're going to play around with those and see how long they'll last for me. The other one is my 3/4 fill block. I would like to do some drag and drives eventually with the car, but we'll see where that takes us. But for the meantime, we're just trying to chase some ETs. That being said, so far, the personal best on it we did at the Shootout this year, 2023 Shootout out at the Summit Motorsports Park in Norwalk. We did 8:56 at 158 miles an hour. It was the second real pass on this setup since we've switched over to the FuelTech FT600. For that, Kevin over at Early Performance, Kevin Collins, was just an absolute miracle worker. I handed him the car, I think like 3 weeks before Shootout started, and 4 or 5 days before I had to bring the car to Shootout. It was on the dyno. It only took 4 total passes on the dyno for him to get all the way up to 940 wheel. And even the first pass was on the dyno was perfect, just was at lower boost. And then we took it out to Shootout, ran a 926, and found out that was just because we did a 1.7 60 foot with an empty nitrous bottle. Tossed a new nitrous bottle in it, and immediately 1.34 60 foot, 856, and my whole team as well as me went completely insane because the car has been waiting forever, as well as I have been waiting forever for it to be able to make a pass like it did. And then next morning, backed it right up, did 857 at 159, and that was with the exact same settings. Nitrous still only on for the launch, and again, still on super low timing. So we're really looking forward to seeing what it can do this year, up in 2024. We think that it should do a 7. I wouldn't say easily. No car is easy to get to a 7, but it's not breathing too hard at an 856. We really think that it's got a lot left in it. And, keeping the nitrous on, we think should just get us to an 820, maybe 829 or so. And then we've got some work to do to get those last 3/10, but we don't plan on having the car necessarily live in the 7s. I'd like to be able to make a lot of passes, and the car is, of course, nicknamed Old Unreliable, and we'd like to keep it not earning that nickname as much as possible going on in the future. But the whole reason I named it that in the first place was so that when it does break, because, I mean, let's face it, it's a race car. It's going to break, and it's a Mitsubishi at that. They do. When it does, I don't want to hate my hobby. I want to be able to love it. I want to be able to laugh at it. And that's what keeps me looking at it in a humorous way is, it's Old and Reliable. It's earned that nickname a bunch of times. So everybody else laughs when they see it, and it keeps me laughing when it happens. So I can't get mad at it, and I still love the car, even after how poorly it's treated me over the years. But going into next year, we're hoping to do some street car takeovers, some no prep events. There's a local place, Hoosier No Prep, a local organization that will allow all-wheel drive in and not punish us too bad, which is nice considering that's not the case most places. Of course, try to pull the biggest punches at Shootout. Shootout's what I organize my entire year around. It means the most to me. Most guys don't know me necessarily even for the car. They know me for running around and welding everybody else's stuff while I'm at Shootout, which has been one of the best parts of Shootout so far. But this year I got to change it up and do some racing. So this year was definitely my best Shootout by far. My wife got to see me pull my personal best, and as did all my team. And I've been their cheerleader for a few years, and now they all did it for me and returned the favor. They all helped me anywhere I needed it, and had me excited the whole weekend. So we're really hoping that we should be able to get to a 7 at Shootout next year. That's like my biggest goal. But the rest of the year we can let it live in the low 8s and hopefully just keep it together and hurt some feelings. But so far, one of the biggest improvements we've made versus last year was also putting the car on CO2 boost control. That's one thing that any of my friends I would really suggest that you look into. I gained about 130 wheel horsepower in the mid-range just from that one modification alone, with no other real changes to my setup besides going from Haltech Nexus last year to FuelTech FT600 this year. So that has been good, and quite honestly, I don't know what to do with myself this winter because I really don't have much to do to it. We're going to add some drain lines to the drains to my lines for the puke tank, and we're going to put a window net in it, which I've got sitting up on my bench. And the only other real thing I'm thinking I want to do is put a fire suppression system in it because the car's been good to me. I don't want to let it hurt itself at all. So, but other than that, the car's pretty much ready for next year, and I'm really the most excited to have a full season, to dial it in, really get it to see its full potential. We'll see if we feel like it'll be competitive at World Cup for next year. I don't know if the rules are going to be too kind to it, as going to a 62 and not having a second power adder seems like it's not going to be the kindest thing for it, but we'll see. But I'm just most of all proud of what the car has done this year, and the fact that I built this thing in a tiny little 2-car garage by myself, no lift, with an Eastwood TIG welder, and by no means am I doing this professionally anymore. And even when I did work on cars professionally, we did a lot of sheet metal work, we did restorations, but I didn't build race cars. And so for me to build something that's doing what this has done, and for me to jump into the top 20 right off the bat for active race cars or DSMs is something that, quite honestly, I never really thought was going to happen. And I've had a lot of support over the years. A lot of guys encourage me. A lot of inspiration from other cars that I've seen that have done really, really well. Of course, watching Devin and Aaron, the really heavy hitters, but watching Rich Ong in the last couple of years really turn his car up and do some absolute damage with that thing, and Tony Niemczyk with his car doing crazy stuff on drag and drives. That's kind of what's pushed me to want to drag and drive this car. My teammate Mike Wagner pulling 8777 with a stock drive shaft and stock transfer case and a 6-point in it was sketchy but really cool to see. That's why we still call him Driver Mod. But I have tried to take all of that inspiration and do as much with the car while still keeping it mine, still doing stuff that makes it a little bit different from everybody else's cars, and just really show what these cars can do. And now that I've got the car rolling, I really think that we can go out and hit some events that haven't had a whole lot of DSMs at them locally, or at least ones that are going to pull mid to low 8s, and just show that these cars are still a danger. Not everybody knows what these are. I was at a show for PRI last night at an unofficial after party where the car was displayed, and you had a lot of guys that knew what they were, and a lot of guys that would come up and just say, "What is this thing?" Or, "Why do you have such a big turbo on such a little motor?" Any of them asked me what the car would run, showing them that the car did an 856. Not one of them could keep their jaw off the floor, because a lot of their twin turbo V8s run the same times. And by no means am I saying that's unimpressive for a twin turbo V8. That's still a fast car. But none of them thought 122 cubic inches could pull that off. And especially when I told them that was on really low settings, that I've got 20 plus PSI left on the table, they didn't like hearing that, because I had a buddy of mine that's got a modded Hellcat that hasn't seen the car since it was on an FP Black setup. He was the one that was detailing it, and he immediately said, "I am not racing you." I looked in there and said, "Those are buttons you didn't have before. Those are 2 bottles you didn't have before in the back of that car. I don't want to step up to the line with you." So it was pretty cool to see the impressions that the car made, and it was really cool to see people appreciate the hard work that I've put into it. I obviously have a huge love for cars, and this has been my obsession. My wife has been nothing but encouragement, and I have had nothing but encouragement from my team as well, CVC Racing. But I'm hoping I can earn the right to have that encouragement this year, and really just keep pushing it and see what this car can do.
Number 25 position, 1992.